So, in this exercise, we will create a menu for your beautiful final project. And of course, I'm using my beautiful final project here, quote unquote, but you don't have to obviously use the same video. The idea here is that you will use your own videos for this. But for the purpose of the exercise, to follow the instructions, I will include that video, and I'll show you how to do it, and then you can use your own assets. Okay, so a couple of things here. We have the buttons, and the buttons are actually the symbols with the type of button, and this second button actually has a mouse over effect. You could have it for all the buttons if that fits your design, but for my design I just used one button with the mouse over, and the rest of the buttons, all of them actually, are clickable. So if I click, for example, on the syllabus, it will open the syllabus. If I click on my instructor button, it will open my LinkedIn profile, and so forth. So the student gallery, that's pending your artwork, but for right now I use the previous students from a similar class. Anyways, so that's the project, and let's get to that. And so your first step will be to create the buttons, and that's exercise, actually I'm on the wrong file. Exercise 1, getting started, is where you will have pre-made buttons, but they don't have the clickable actions yet. So as you can see, they're not interactive, and the smiley actually keeps going into the loops, so we have to stop it from going crazy with greeting everyone. So how are we gonna do that? Let's go to the actions, and I already added some code here, and all you have to do for now is to uncomment the code, and it's gonna stop the smiley from going crazy. Alright, let's publish it now, make sure it works, and actually it didn't. And why wouldn't it not work? Maybe it's not finding the smiley, right? So let's make sure that the smiley has the instance name. It's always good to know. So I'm gonna call it smiley, following the example in the code, and now when I publish it, it should find the smiley, assuming that I didn't make a typo. So now the smiley is stopped, right? And next, let's go ahead and make the smiley clickable. And the first thing that we're gonna do is add the mouse cursor effect. In one of the previous exercises, we kind of had the same challenge. I think it was a banner, and we wanted to have the mouse cursor effect. And back then, in the earlier weeks, we just changed it in the property panel. So we changed it from the object type movie clip, we changed it to button. But we don't want to do it this time, because if we change it to button, it's gonna interfere with some other interactive capacities. So back in the previous week, we didn't have to do anything with that button. It was just supposed to look like a clickable element. Versus in here, we're gonna add some actions. We're gonna have the ability to click on the smiley and have it play. So for that, we want to keep it as a movie clip. So instead of converting it to a button, through the object panel, we're gonna just add a little bit of a code that will take this symbol, that smiley, and it will change the cursor to the type of pointer, which looks like a hand, right? So let's go ahead and publish that. And now, and sometimes it might actually, let's see, sometimes it may not refresh right away. I've noticed that. Yeah, something was glitching a little bit, so I added a mouse over event to the smiley, and that seemed to kind of fix the problem. So what I've been noticing with my internet connection, or just my computer, I'm not sure exactly what happens, but there is some kind of a gap sometimes. You've seen, for example, when I play the video, sometimes it when I play the smiley, sometimes the sound is not in sync. It kind of comes a little late, so that could be something like that, but hopefully it won't be a problem on your computer. In any case, so this is kind of like a way to address it if you have to. All right, and by the way, you can close and reopen those code snippets, so you could collapse the ones that you're not working with. And I'm just gonna add a comment here, mouse, smiley, mouse over. All right, and so hopefully your computer doesn't have the internet glitches like mine does, because that can be really mind-boggling. Anyways, so the smiley is acting like a smiley now, and I actually want to do one more thing with the smiley. I want to have it play on the mouse click, and for that, instead of stopping it here, I think I'm gonna change the stop action to be inside the smiley. And I also need to add a code snippet to the smiley that will make it a clickable element. So let's go to the code snippets, when we have to be in HTML5 canvas, and let's add a mouse click. And it's very convenient when we have the properly named symbols. It recognized the name, and I'm gonna make a custom comment here. Let's call it smiley clicked. And I will change the function name. I will call it smiley clicked. And just to make it a little more human readable. And notice I copied the function name, and obviously here we're gonna change something about this this code. But first, before we change something, let's make sure that default alert that is here actually works. It's always good, right? To make sure that things are working. So I'm gonna click on the smiley and it gave me the alert. Okay, great. So I don't need that anymore now that we know it's working. And next, let's go ahead and have it play. So instead of this.smiley.stop, I'm gonna say this.smiley go to and play. And capitalization is very important here, and then we have to make sure that we tell it where to go. So we need to enter the exact keyframe. So the keyframes actually start with 0. So the first keyframe is, it has the index 0, the second keyframe has the index 1. It's just the way it is in programming. Don't ask me why. It's to make people confused, I guess. But in any case, to have it go to keyframe number 2, I'm gonna say go to and play 1. So let's see how that goes.
Hi, how are you? I love you.
Okay, it goes well.
Hi.
Okay, and then it goes into the loops. So we don't want that loop to happen. Let's change it. Let's go to the smiley, go inside the smiley, and let's add some actions here. I already have some labels, that's very convenient. Let's add another layer here, call it actions. And on the first keyframe, oh, okay, actually I was trying to add a keyframe. So insert keyframe, and here we're gonna say this.stop. All right. And with that, we probably don't need the previous stop, right? We probably don't need this stop action. So let's see. So it worked. Now let's play it again.
Hi, how are you? I love you.
And notice what happened. It's not replaying anymore. It went into the beginning and it stopped. And it's gonna stay stopped until I click it again, because once I click it, remember, we told it to go to the next keyframe. And if we look here on the timeline, on the smiley timeline, we have keyframe 0, and that's keyframe 1. So I hope you're confused enough with those 0s and 1s, because notice here it actually says 1 and 2. So very, very tricky. So the keyframes in programming, they don't correspond to the keyframes in the actual timeline. So, well, logically they should have say, okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, to make it easy for people who do both programming and design work. But well, that didn't happen. Anyways, so just keep in mind that that's something that can trip you off. Anyways, so we've accomplished an interactive smiley, and next let's go ahead and work on the buttons. So I'm gonna start working on the first button, and the process goes like that. I will create the first button, and then I will add the effect to the button, because I want all the effects, all the mouse over effects, be the same for all 3 buttons. So it might be like a little tedious to recreate them for each button. So instead of recreating the effects, I will basically just recreate the buttons. So at some point I'm gonna delete the other 2 buttons, and I will use my first button as a template. All right, so let me show you what I mean. I'm gonna select this button and go to Modify, Convert to Symbol, and it's gonna become a button. I'm gonna give it a name, button underscore syllabus. Beautiful. And I'll keep the registration to the center and click OK, and well, it's telling me, hey, it already exists. Well, it's probably because I was preparing this demo before, right? So, okay, let me delete that. And I will try it again. So modify, convert to symbol, and let's call it button underscore syllabus. And here we go. So what's the deal about the buttons? Well, the buttons are very handy because they already come with pre-built mouse over effects. So I have an option here to add keyframes or frames if I want the look to be the same, for example, for different states. But actually, I think I forgot to do something, and what I forgot to do is I forgot that it would be convenient to have those those elements on the different layers. So let me fix that. Let me clear this keyframe. I will add another layer. I'll call it button shape, and I will call this one button text. Okay, and now I will do edit cut, and I will do edit paste in place. Okay, and I will actually extend the frames, and I will convert those frames into keyframes. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me to have different looks for different states, and no coding is required here. All you have to do is go to the corresponding keyframe, and let's say I want the button on this keyframe to be a little lighter, for example. So let's see. I'm actually gonna open the color panel because I realize it's a gradient, and let's change this gradient a little bit. Maybe, actually, instead of lighter, maybe it should be darker. So you can play around with those effects, see what speaks to you. Maybe the stroke should be lighter. Let's see. Let's try that. So it's fun. It's fun and easy to do those changes. And actually, I think I double clicked and I went outside of my button. So I'll have to go back here. And let's say on a mouse over, I want to change the text to be a little darker. Let's try the black, and let's see what happens. So I'm gonna publish that, and notice the button has changed a little bit. So I think it looks nice. It's a little different from my other demo, but you know, you'll have a variety of ideas from that, hopefully. And next, I don't want to worry about matching the gradient because that can be quite tedious and inefficient. So instead, what I will do is go back and duplicate that button. And just one more thing about the head element. We're gonna use it later on in this exercise, but the head is the area that is active. And right now it defaults to the size of this shape. But if I had multiple shapes, I could basically define the head area. Maybe if I had little dots around this button, and I wanted all the dots and the button to be clickable, then I would have to create a head area. Anyways, let's go back and let's delete the other buttons for now. Or actually, before I delete them, I will actually leave them because I want to use them as a template. So here's my button, right? Okay. And here are the other buttons. So I'm gonna create a new layer and call it buttons. Okay. And next I will take this button and do edit cut, and then I will paste it to this layer. So we'll do edit paste in place, and I will clone this button. I could paste it in place 2 more times maybe. So basically I'll have 3 buttons exactly the same, and I can move them around. At this point I don't need the other ones, so I could turn them off or delete them. And I can, actually I shouldn't delete them yet because I want to use them as a reference for the text. So first I will align those buttons between each other so that they have exactly the same amount of space. And I just went into the align and I click distribute the spacing on the vertical axis. And next I want to change obviously the text for those buttons. So I have about instructor and student gallery. Okay, great. So if I start changing the text now, it will change on all three of them because they're exactly the same. So first what I need to do is duplicate the button, and I will call it button instructor. Okay, and this button is gonna be actually I have to create it in the library first, so let's duplicate it one more time and let's call it button gallery. Oh, spell it right. Okay, button gallery. And next we will well, it doesn't matter in what sequence you do it, but you could swap the symbols. So I know this one is gonna be instructor and this one is gonna be a gallery, and then I will go into each of those buttons and, well, obviously change the text. Okay, and I'll do the same thing for this one. Fantastic. So now they all have different text and they should have exactly the same style. Except that I have to do it a couple more times. That's always easy to forget, right? So I had multiple keyframes, so I have to recreate that text 2 more times. But it remembers the color change. So I'll have to, instead of copying that keyframe, I will basically retype the text to keep the color change. Okay. And I actually have to do it twice because there's also a down state. The down state is when the button is pressed. So I'm gonna demonstrate it for you. Right now I haven't changed the down state yet. When mouse over, it looks fine. Okay. And except that it has a typo, which I also have to fix. But when I press the mouse, you see it changes back to the syllabus. So that the mouse press look, and I have to do it again for all the buttons. So right now it's kind of a nuisance, but it can also be a powerful artistic element. So if you want, for example, the button to say something different when there's a mouse over, you can do that. It can be quite interesting. Okay, so let me do it one more time here. Okay, and that's gonna be our finished button effect. And notice the first time I'm kind of loading it, it does have that same delay that I had issues with for the smiley. Anyways, let's go back to the main timeline. Let's delete those extra layers because we don't need them anymore. And let's think about it. So we created the buttons. I think the buttons should be clickable. So let's add some actions to those buttons. And you already know how to do that. I'm just gonna remind you that if you go to the HTML5 canvas, you can do the mouse click, and of course before you do that, let's make sure that the buttons actually have the instance names. So let's call them button syllabus. I'm just gonna call them, give them the same instance name as the movie clip names, just to make it easy. And for this one I'm gonna call it button instructor. And button gallery. Okay, fantastic. Now when I click, when I double click on the event handler, it will recognize that instance name. It's not gonna auto rename it, and it's gonna beautifully create a snippet of code. And I can add a comment here. Let's make it clear what we're working on. We'll call it buttons events or something like that, or clickable buttons, buttons clicked, to be consistent with the other ones. Okay, so let's see here. Buttons syllabus, add event listener, one click. Let's call it button syllabus clicked or something like that. And I'll just say syllabus clicked. Make it a little more readable, and I will change the function name here. And let's make sure that it actually works. Let's see who can get that alert. And okay, and it works. Fantastic. So next, let's go ahead and add a code. So let's select the object, and we're gonna say click to go to the web page, and notice it actually created another another function, which I don't really need that function because it's a duplicate of this one, right? So I already nicely named my click event here. So what I'm gonna do instead, I'm just gonna cut this code and paste it in here, and I can just get rid of this automatic function that it created. Okay, so, and right now it should go to adobe.com, and you know how to change it. It's pretty simple. So let's make sure it works. and I already provided you with the code for the correct links, or you can experiment with your own links. So I'm gonna just basically copy this URL here from my previous work, and I'll just paste it in here. Okay, fantastic. So now let's save it, let's test it, and that should open the syllabus. Okay, so for the next button, I will basically just duplicate this code, and I will call it button instructor, and I have to change the function name, and once I change it, I will copy it to avoid any typos, and I will change the link to my personal website, and you can copy it from the instructions as well. So, or you can put any other social media link or whatever, you know, whatever you feel like it's, you could just start working with your own buttons and use whatever is relevant for your project. Okay, so that's button number 2, and I'm just gonna repeat that same process for button number 3. And that should make 3 clickable buttons, right? So let's make sure they all work. So that one takes us to the LinkedIn, this one takes us to the gallery. Fantastic. Let's see. I think we can so we've created the clickable buttons. That should be your step number 2, and you can reuse that code snippet here. And step number 3 is gonna be adding a mouse over event for the button. So far, like if you think about it, we've created the click events, but nothing happens to the button when we mouse over, except that it changes the color a little bit, right? So the beauty of the buttons is that you can actually create other elements inside the buttons. You could put movie clips inside the buttons, for example, or you could create additional elements. And this is when the head element actually becomes important. Remember we talked about the head, and let's look at that. So what I did here, I added a keyframe for the head, and the head is invisible. It's, you know, people, the users, the viewers, they're not gonna see it, but they're gonna feel it, because that's the area that will be clicked. And I specifically did not want the circle to be accidentally mouse overed and triggered when the user is outside of the button. So I have created that head area that basically says only if you are within this rectangle, right? Only if you are within this rectangle, show the over, down, and up state. And so for the over state, I have this circle with my bio, and we're gonna add a couple more things to that. So let's go ahead and add a monogram. All right. Not actually sure what that layer is. Let's find out. Okay, so that one is actually a stroke. And so what I think I want to do is I probably want to combine those layers. So I'm just gonna do edit cut, and I'm gonna go to edit paste in place. In this way it's more organized, and I'm gonna call it shape, something like that. And for the AZ logo, I have prepared my personal logo here. So we're gonna learn how to import the assets from other programs. In your design, you might need to bring in additional elements. It's very easy if you used other programs like Illustrator, Photoshop. You can pretty much just bring additional elements to your Animate file. And so what I'm gonna do is go to import to stage, and I will find my monogram, and here's the black one, and I will go open. In this case, I don't want to do anything fancy with that, so I will basically use I will basically ignore the layers that are within that file, and I will import it as a single animatable a single animate layer. But if I wanted, for example, to animate those letters individually, I could import them as different layers. So in this case, I'm gonna change it to a single layer and click import, and here it is, and I'll just place it in here. And for this layer, okay, so this is actually a text, okay, and I will create another one, and I have to make sure that I'm not going over into the head area. So I will insert blend keyframe, and now I will import something else. I will import my picture, and here's the one I want to use, and I'll just put it in here. All right, so that's how you go about importing external files. Again, you could customize those imports based on your project, and in my project I kept it simple, but you can definitely get more creative with that. All right, so I think it's ready to be tested. Let's see how it plays out. So if I mouse over, well, it's always good to test, right? And it's almost perfect. What happens here, we have the video element that gets in the way of this preview. And there is a way to get around that. So I'm gonna actually go to my final completed version, and I'll show you the code that was used to fix it. So this is the line of code that will allow you to hide the video element. And notice here it tells the document, the web document, to find the video container And that video container has a certain ID that you don't have to worry about that in this class. Just take my word for that for right now. But the document is going to find the element with the ID of video container, and that's going to change the style of that video container to 0. And 0 we know is invisible, right? So that's the code that we're going to use. And let's go ahead, and I think I already have enabled the frequency for my stage. So let me actually go back to my work in progress, the demo I'm working on. So I have created the clickable buttons, and actually no, I don't have the, so I'll do it from scratch. Let's go to again to the code snippets, and let's add another event handler, and we need to add that event handler to the correct element, right? So in this case it's gonna be, and we also have to make sure we're on the correct keyframe. So here we go. So we're on the main layer. I'm going to select this element, and I will add a mouse over event. Even though it does have a mouse over by default because it's a button, but because we want to add something extra to that, not just show something that we put on the timeline, you have to do it like that. Okay, and as always, it's good to test things. So I'm gonna go here, and it works. And notice alert shows up before that extra element that we've added, which is what I told you. Okay, and next I'm gonna delete all this stuff here, and we're gonna add the line of code I showed you, right? It's also in the instructions. Okay, so let's put it here, and let's see what happens. Okay, and nothing happened. Oh, okay, because I copied the wrong the wrong line of code. That's why nothing has happened. Okay, so I was supposed to copy this one. Okay, so let's replace that. Okay, and now, okay, so it still didn't happen. Let's find out why. It's probably because it's not finding the element, right? So I forgot to name my video container. So I have to give the video containers that I'm working on a name, the instance name, before I can tell the code to go and look for that video container. So that would not work because it's not finding it. Okay, now let's take a look. Okay, as soon as I named it, now it knows what it is, and it's finding it, and it makes it invisible. Well, nice. But what if we want to go back, right? What if we want to show it again when we mouse out? So, well, we have to be explicit about this and tell the program that, hey, when something changes, like in this case, when the event type changes, then we want to call a different function. I'm gonna call it number 4, or I can give it a better name. I could say well, I can't think of a better name right now. It's okay. So I'm just gonna keep it like that, but you can name it something else if you want, and I will just change the opacity and let's see if it worked. Okay, and it did. So that's how you do it. And for the video element, I just want to mention that we can set up the poster frame, which is what I did here. And to do that, you can go to the components and you can basically set up a poster image. All right, so that's the thing. And next, I'm gonna show you how to publish it online. So I'm gonna do a save as of this file. And I will call it index. Now, this is important. Why is it important? Because we're going to publish it, and that will make it easy for us to find it. I'm going to tell you that much right now. So that's my completed file. I'm saving it. And I will actually separate it. So I'll just do it from scratch. I have prepared my folder here, Exercise 11 Publish Menu, and I will take that index file that I just saved, and I will also take my Assets folder. Okay, so I'm gonna take that. Okay, and go to here, and I will paste those 2 items. And next I will reopen this index file, and I will publish it again. Okay. Yeah, I think my program has crashed. So let me see. Okay, so I'm gonna do it a little differently. I'm just gonna go to my desktop, and I will go to the publish menu and save that file manually. But first, let's see if it actually published it. Yeah, it looks like it did publish it. Looks like things are working fine. So it just was basically crashing when it was publishing. Now, if that happens to you, just save the file and under a different name maybe, and when it publishes, the idea is that we want to have index.html file generated when it's published. So the reason why I renamed it into index.fla is to have automatically generated index.html. Otherwise, I could just rename it into index.html. I could just publish it with a different name and do it like that. Okay, in any case, so what happened here, I have my files that are necessary for previewing the website online, ready to go. And that includes all of those additional folders. So notice that before I just had two files, right? I had index.fla and I had my assets, which is the linked video file and other things. And once I published it, it created components, it created the images, it created the sounds, and it created the videos folders. And all of those things are very, very important. So when I publish my project, I'll grab all of those files and folders, not the FLA files. I don't need the FLA. I don't need the original asset folder, but I need all of those automatically generated files and folders. And I basically created a place for you where you can publish your files for this class. And if you want to learn more about how to publish the files, maybe have your own place to publish them, because obviously you will graduate and you will probably want to share your projects with the audience. So you can take a web design class and you can actually create your own website for these type of things. So you can have your own portfolio website. But for right now, we're gonna use mine, and you will be hosting your project under my website. So if you have your own, if you've taken a web design class, you can go ahead and publish it on your website. That's totally fine if you know how to do that. But if you don't, just bear with me and we're gonna do it together. So to do that, well, first of all, notice that that index file currently is on my desktop, right? And as long as it's on the desktop, it means that no one can see it except for you, or in this case me and you, because I'm recording it as a video. But no person on the internet can access file, colon, lots of forward slashes, users, and whatever like the path to that file is on my local computer. So how are we gonna fix that? First, you want to download a program called FileZilla. And the FileZilla allows you to transfer the files between your local computer and a server. And the server is a special computer that has access to the internet, that allows people to access the files by going to the browser and typing in the address. And so the address that we're going to use is going to be my website name, the class name, and the students folder, and then the corresponding year for this academic year. And I already created my folder here. So it's because I was obviously doing it a little bit before that demo, but we're gonna do it again. So, and I also already have the program downloaded, so you want to download this first one that says download FileZilla client. And once it's downloaded and installed, you can open it. Okay, here it is. You can open FileZilla and notice it has two sides. The first one is pretty obvious. It's just my computer. It says local site and it's pointing to the desktop. And conveniently I have my folders. The one that I'm gonna publish is right here. And notice I have my index.html file and I have all of those files I mentioned earlier. They're in a different list view, but it's these are the files that I'm gonna need. And I can actually go ahead and probably just move the ones that I don't need into some different folders. I'm gonna, to make it a little easier for you to follow, I'm gonna close this program and I will make a new folder and I will move my index file and this file in here. And so what's gonna be left is just the files that I need to publish. And I will take that and just move it up. Okay, so this is my final deliverable. Let's go back to my FileZilla and it should refresh here. Again, may not be instant. Sometimes my computer is a little weird, but it takes a second to refresh and now I have the files. Okay, but where do they go? Okay, I need to connect somewhere. It says not connected to any server. Okay, great. So how do I connect? It's asking me to enter the information. Just like with any website where you go, you enter your username and password. You also need to specify which website it's for, and I have already provided all of that. You will find it in the instructions. So I'm gonna close it and then we will start over just to make sure it all works. Okay, here is the password. Here is the username. For the port, we want to specify 21. And for the FTP server, we're gonna say ftp.educationalfilms.net. Let's do quick connect. Let's trust the certificate, and as long as the password is and other things are correct, we should be connected. Now, once it's connected, you should see on the right side, or it can be the other way around, but on one of the sides you should see the folder that I made. So how did I make this folder? I'll show you. I'm gonna delete this one, and I will make another one. So I'm gonna create directory, and this directory is gonna be just my first and last name, and I'm not using any spaces or capitalization. That just makes things so much easier. And next, I will take all the files and folders that I have prepared here, and I'll drag them into this folder. And notice I'm dragging them in the folder, not the folder above, but I'm putting them in my folder. Okay, so that's very, very important. If everything was done correctly, then you should be able to go to this URL. And of course, keep in mind that if you created a folder with your name, then you would have to change this part here, right? You would have to type in your first and last name, because your folder is going to be different from my folder. So, but if you've done it correctly, then you should see your file published online. All right, and it works, and you can share this path with your friends and family, and they can view it. Well, you may not want to share it yet, because maybe you're still working on the project, but later on during this semester we will actually share it. So right now we're practicing, and once it's ready to show, or almost ready, we're gonna actually share it with the audience. All right, well, I hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions, if you find it challenging or get confused with any step of that process, please reach out. I'll walk you through. But if you enter the password correctly and everything looks correct, I think it should be no problem. All right, so I hope you find it interesting. I hope you will consider taking a web design class, and I look forward to seeing your projects.